list some of these, and those who are supposed, who are the people that really enjoy, these privileges and why. Then secondly, I want to ask, some people ask me, somebody sent me a text now, he said, did they actually invite Bobrisky? Because, Bobrisky and this Kuje prison actually triggered this pro panel. Did you invite Bobrisky?
Okay. When we did the first phase of this investigation, remember that Bobrisky had finished his jail term and had left the custodian center. But we invited him and even invited his lawyer. But they refused to come. Okay, and you can't force anybody to come. All you do is do the invitation, have conversation with them. I think the legal department of the ministry engaged his lawyer, and they gave the reasons why they wouldn't want to come. But the key thing in that phase one was to establish that Bobrisky served his jail term in the custodian center. And every indication, all the records were there to show that he served his jail term. From the day he was admitted into the custodian center, even all the transfers to the day he was discharged. And the records are there for everybody to see.
Okay.
So what are the privileges that people enjoy? I don't want to call them privileges, like Dr. Agomo had alluded, that in different climes, there are things that would just happen, okay, for inmates. When you have a VIP or people of high social status in the society, they are there in the custodian center. Are you going to put them in the open dormitory or where you have single rooms?
Does it now say we have big thieves and small thieves?
No, don't let us go there.
I'm just saying. I'm just asking because I mean it's like someone.
It's not everybody in the custodian center is not a thief.
I'm just assuming that, say for example, the crime, for example, is stealing.
Some are still awaiting trial. They haven't been condemned. Okay, so those ones are innocent or proven otherwise, right? And this is just a question for me and you, okay? You have high-profile status individuals in the correctional center. We are seeing the reality of what is going on in our correctional centers. You have the dormitory, you have the isolated rooms, you have rooms where there are just probably like 2 people or 4 inmates occupying. Where are you going to put those people? Where are you going to put those people? What we are looking at is that eventually we should be able to reform our custodian center to the point that it will be comfortable for all the inmates.
As a matter of fact, the UN recommendation is as much as possible for countries to begin to shift a little bit away from the dormitory life. But it's going to take God knows how long because of the processes. But what the panel's position, remember I said to you that in that first report, we listed all the privileges. So in this second phase, we want to look at those privileges and the condition and know what are the recommendations that will flow out of it. Who are the persons that assess it? What are they legitimate? Is it in line with international practices, or are there things that needs to be changed? And the point I was making earlier was the fact that privileges are used as incentive, but it has to be something that is accessible to every inmate, and the criteria has to be clear. So you need to know, what do I need to do to earn this? So if I behave well, for example, I may earn this type of visiting arrangement. I just give that as an example. So, or if I'm sick, like if people who are sick, I may need this, or if different approaches. Okay. But this is something that is part of the second phase. So I just wanted to mention that we haven't drawn up the recommendations regarding the application of privileges. That's part of what we're going to look at in this.
Just a quick addition
Okay.
to what Dr. Ajani said. It's not just that the VIPs are given VIP treatment because they are VIP. There are practical scenarios. For example, if a governor is thrown into correctional facility, and
A former governor.
Former governor, and he is thrown into the place where you have all the criminals. The first is that there is this anger against those who are high up in the society.
Isn't that why there are officials there to, you know,
No, but they don't
check?
sleep with them inside. They won't sleep with them inside the court.
But
So
isn't,
you can drop
isn't that where
governor.
the correction is in the first place?
That's-
for those people who are big, who are up there, who do what is wrong, that gets them
you
in jail?
don't. You haven't understood me. A typical example was a police officer, the renowned police officer that was thrown to Kuje. You remember? Let's assume that there are criminals that he encountered in the course of his job, and he made them to be prosecuted and convicted, or they were going through a waiting trial, and you drop the same officer in the same cell with them. Do you think he's going to come out alive?
You know,
He won't come out alive.
I think the best way to understand this is when you look at the criteria for assessing any privilege, you understand. So part of that criteria could be safety. So
Okay,
if
that-
you know,
that-
yeah, so that's the kind. I
question.
think it's
Yeah,
better
so
to
what-
look at
yes,
that.
that's-
and
that's
then,
what
as
I
I
said,
said, the
who
panel
are the
hasn't.
people?
We haven't fully dealt with it. All we have done so far is to list in our first report
Okay.
the ones we saw in the two facilities. Now we are also capturing the privileges we're observing in other centers. Now the next thing will now be to look at how do people assess it, what are the things we can recommend, you know, because it has to be fair, it has to be just, it has to be also compliant with international standards. But that's part of second phase work. We haven't